Well, good day, everyone, and welcome to today's Cybersecurity Fireside Chat, where we talk about all things security. Now, my name is Stephen, and joining me today is our special guest, Brian Burnett, Director of Cybersecurity at North Carolina Electric Cooperatives. Welcome to the Fireside Chat, Brian.
Thanks, Stephen. Appreciate it.
Now, a little bit about Brian here, and I always enjoy this. I always have a chance to go out on these LinkedIn profiles and learn about my guest. Brian is an accomplished cybersecurity leader with over 15 years of experience in building and managing robust cybersecurity programs. And as director of cybersecurity, he excels in aligning business strategies with actionable security goals, leading cross-functional teams, and implementing innovative solutions to safeguard IT environments. A little bit more, in addition to his leadership role, Brian also contributes to academia as an adjunct professor and tutor for courses in cybersecurity and digital forensics, fostering the next generation of professionals. Very noble cause there. Now, Brian holds several certifications like Certified Computer Forensics Examiner, NCASE Certified Examiner, Access Data Certified Examiner. And I understand, Brian, you're working on your CISSP. At least that's what I gleaned off of your LinkedIn profile.
Yes, working on that. Knock that out shortly, hopefully.
Yeah, I know. That was a bit of a challenge myself. I did mine years ago, and I'll never forget the 6 hour test on these hard metal chairs. And you get through the whole test, and you're like, I'm 5 hours into it. And I'm like, that's it, I'm done. I can't sit another minute on this hard chair. But you do have an impressive background experience and certification, certainly. Now, Brian, before we get chatting about all things security, I'm sure a lot of the listening audience have no idea what North Carolina Electric Cooperatives does. So, can you share a little bit about, what your organization does in North Carolina?
Sure. So it's quite different with in the utility space. So with NCEMC, we are what's called the statewide organization for North Carolina Electric Cooperatives. So there are 26 electric co-ops across the state of North Carolina. They are all independently owned and operated. Each responsible for their cybersecurity programs, running the organizations, and collaboratively, all 26 effectively own us at the statewide level. So I'm responsible for the total cybersecurity program for NCEMC for the statewide organization. I'm not responsible for the co-ops and their cybersecurity. We exchange information and talk and work collaboratively, and we share information about things that are going on. We help each other, certainly, but so they're responsible for theirs, and of course I'm covering the statewide stuff for both the business IT environment as well as the operational technology environment.
Yeah. So not only do you generate power, right? And you serve some customers, I'm guessing. I don't know if there's any customers
So
you serve or
yeah, it was interesting, kind of a learning curve on my part as well. So we own and we own in part, with the co-ops, a number of different resources. There's microgrids, that we own collaboratively with a number of the co-ops that are across certain areas, and other what's called distributed energy resources that handle generation and distribution. And then we also handle purchasing power on the commercial market, and then that's sold to the co-op. So Duke, the larger entities, we have
okay.
agreements with, and that's of course outside of my area of expertise, but we purchase that power, then it's sold out to the co-ops. That's blended in with the generation capability that the co-ops have, as well as what's purchased on the commercial market. So it's an interesting thing to learn when getting into that,
Mhm.
understand how that works. And the electric co-ops actually cover more land mass from a power distribution perspective than like Duke does. Duke, the commercial piece of Duke, they have
Mhm.
more population. The cooperative actually covers more land area across
Because of the rural areas versus the city areas, I'm guessing. Yes.
the rural areas are covered by co-ops.
Right. So is this a kind of a common model throughout many of the states? Is this sort of model
It
similar?
there are a lot of electric utility cooperatives across the country. They're all set up and run differently. There's a lot of different approaches to that, and going to different parts of the country and having conversations, it's interesting to kind of learn and see how they operate. But the co-op model is out there spread across the country for
Yeah.
sure.
So, yeah, great background. I have a million questions, around the power, transmission and generation and everything else. But when you think about a big infrastructure like you folks are responsible for, I mean, what are some of the cybersecurity threats? I mean, what are the things that you're seeing that you're concerned about, some of the things you've observed in the past, some of the developments? Because I understand you had shared just a few minutes ago that you're going and you're speaking at various audiences and you're talking to a lot of different people around the country. What are you hearing? What is the biggest thing out there today?
So the big push currently is formalizing and maturing the cybersecurity program around the operational technology environment. So that the OT environment is everything that builds up power generation and distribution, anything that's involved in that. So you're talking about substations, microgrids, solar plus storage. So when you see those big areas full of solar panels, those kind of resources. So all of those different things make up what's called distributed energy resources. And all of that is the operational technology environment. So it's a newer challenge. Historically, that OT environment from a hasn't had a formal cybersecurity component kind of wrapped around it. It's the cybersecurity focus has been more around the business IT side of the house. So all the normal things that are in an office, it, your laptops, your servers, endpoints, printers, all that normal business stuff. Most organizations are used to handling that, but for the OT side, it's a very different approach. There's very different hardware, software, equipment, the
Mm,
technology, things were very different. And more of that across the country is being connected to the internet. So anything that you're connecting to allow remote access opens up vulnerabilities. There's most people have heard about the physical security concerns as well. There's been things where people are flying drones over substations, flying
yeah.
things into substations, flying things over assets and dropping it, and that kind of different things with drones. So the physical security and cybersecurity piece kind of overlaps a lot for sure. But building out that cybersecurity infrastructure around OT is the big it's a big challenge.
Yeah.
It's an extra workload, it's an extra focus. You have to understand how resources are set up. You can't use the same tooling and resources to monitor and secure a business environment. You can't use those same tools in the OT environment to monitor the network, handle alerting, understand what's all there to secure it. So it's a different set of tools, and setting that up, and you need to have that dedicated resource to be able to secure that and build that out. So
Right.
constant ongoing effort, and the same challenge is seen across the country. We have conversations with the commercial entities, Duke and Dominion and all those folks, and we look at what they're doing for their cybersecurity programs, the technology that they're using, compare notes, and pretty much like most things across cybersecurity now, it's very collaborative space. So no matter what sector you're talking about, there's a lot of information sharing on what people are doing.
Right.
Had conversations with people in manufacturing and healthcare and the water distribution side, and people are sharing information about what they're doing, the tools and the technology they're looking at to secure those environments to make sure they're as secure as they can be. Because there's no such thing as 100% secure. It doesn't matter what you do. You can't
Right.
pour tons of money on it and be secure. There's no such thing as 100% secure. It's a constant daily effort in looking at your environment, looking at what you're doing, looking at the program as a whole, assessing your vendors. The third party cyber vendor risk assessment piece is that's a big push from the end of last year into this year. There's been things on the telecom side where they've had a lot of
Yeah.
focused attacks from
Yeah.
their
Yeah. Yeah.
third party vendors in there. So having a formalized third party vendor risk assessment is a big component. There's discussions in the regulatory space about having anything that's within critical infrastructure should have a formalized third-party risk assessment, be able to demonstrate that they're assessing the vendors that they're using, having them complete cybersecurity risk assessment questionnaires, clarifying what the business relationship with the vendors they use, and then making sure that that's assessed and that what that vendor is doing, what they're providing, what data that they're accessing or systems are accessing, that the proper security is in place, and that's done on a proactive measure on the front end to be as secure as possible. And of course, having the incident response on the back piece for when there is some type of incident, you're ready to respond to that effectively as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, when you think about it, like, the OT environment, legacy systems, control systems that are completely different than a, PC or a laptop or a printer, the big geographies that you guys are thinking, covering. You got 4G and 5G, some maybe even dial-up out there and on some of these systems, and then RF, I mean, what a massive infrastructure, so many different pieces and parts.
Yeah, there's a lot to cover, and it's the one good thing in relationships we're building with a lot of the national laboratories and Department of Energy, and having conversations around what we are doing in terms of building out cybersecurity assessments to go out and do the assessments on those. And then there's the expansion of what's called cyber informed engineering, which is something that was Idaho National Labs has been put in, and we've been actively involved in working with them to build out cybersecurity assessments and include
Yeah.
engineering, and that has driven for us at NCEMC a collaboration between the cybersecurity team and the engineering team. So now we proactively have conversations before a new asset is built on the distributed energy side. We're having conversations on the cybersecurity considerations during the build out, the design. So it's built into it instead of building out a resource and then get it up running and operational and then going in and doing an assessment and looking for vulnerabilities and looking where the gaps are. We look at that consideration on the front end to be proactive. And that's, our executive and senior leadership is very strong and very supportive with all things proactive uh, cybersecurity, and that's kind of helps continue to drive and support the conversation with engineering and just be proactive in all that we do around all things cybersecurity.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's drill a little bit deeper into the cybersecurity side of your business, right? And there's been some of the things that just the observations, some of the things that you've learned in the past. And we had spoken a couple weeks ago as we were, kind of preparing for this. And one of the topics, the themes that you had kind of really centralized on was this proactive defense with continuous testing. I mean, you just mentioned the word assessment, I think, probably a dozen times in your last few minutes of talking. So, how's autonomous pen testing, enabling you to gain real-time visibility and enhance risk management across your IT and OT environments? I mean, what are you guys seeing out there today?
Yeah, so one of the things that I did when I came in was look at the tools that we were using and make sure that they're meeting the business need, because cybersecurity primarily is a business risk, and that's understanding that piece is crucial. So between doing self-assessments, penetration testing, what the typical model is having a third party come in. Some places do it annually, some every other year, and have an outside party come in, do a penetration test, give you the report, and then you start working on the gaps identified and things that are found and to improve your environment. So we kind of had a traditional model like that where we had a third party come in every other year or so, do that engagement. Also had vulnerability scanning in place at the time. And then through Legion CyberWorks, I had a relationship with Clay Dillard, and he introduced Horizon3.ai and the tool, the AI pen testing tool there. Saw that, took a look at it, did a testing of it, and really was really impressed with how that worked. We had just had a third party pen test come in, ran the Horizon3.ai tool, took the reports and compared them, and the Horizon3.ai thing actually picked up a few other things that the third party didn't even identify. So it found what they found and a little bit more. So that made us very
Mhm.
comfortable in, looking to move forward with that tool, and to have that. So, and it allows you, being able to run that kind of pen test as frequently as you want to, and is a great benefit. And it kind of covers that vulnerability scanning piece too. So all the capabilities in that, it's a good bang for the buck to accomplish, that proactive piece. And then part of, the other thing too is still looking at third party vendors periodically to do a pen test and
Mhm.
make sure that the tool is still aligning with what we want it to. So never rely 100% on one tool or one process. Have that verified and vetted, and that's something that
Right.
we do. We don't rely 100% on that. So we're verifying that against, other tests as well. But it's been an effective model for our proactive piece for that.
So how are you scaling these initiatives right across your decentralized network? How do you use these centralized tools and these collaborative initiatives, like the cybersecurity intern program that we had talked a little bit about earlier, and closing these capability gaps for some of the smaller co-ops, right? I mean, because you think about it, they probably don't have really large teams or I mean, probably one man shop, one man, one woman IT shops, and
There are a lot of variables across all of the co-ops. The internal capabilities for each of those is, very, very broad. So we have a collaborative group that we meet at least every quarter, and we all get on a call, a Teams call, and talk about, the concerns that the co-ops have and discuss ideas and kind of throw things out. But that proactive approach is very strong across all the co-ops. I speak with our executive staff and the board and executive staff, across the co-ops as well, to talk about, what the cybersecurity trend is from a program perspective, what the threats look like, what the regulatory landscape looks like, and then, driving that business risk consideration as well. And that's kind of helped kind of drive that proactive approach across all of the co-ops. And that's everybody that's, tackling that cybersecurity concern across the co-ops is working nonstop as hard as they can. And there's a lot of programs and things in the wings that are being worked on to continue to mature capability across all the co-ops as well as ourselves. And it's a constant effort.
so you're taking what you're learning, you're sharing that information with leadership teams in these co-ops, as well as I'm guessing practitioners, and you've got a pretty good staff underneath you. Is that sort of how this is working?
Yeah, so it's typically the way it usually falls. A lot of the cybersecurity responsibility falls into the IT shops because there's not most don't have the staff or the bandwidth to have a dedicated cybersecurity person where that's their sole responsibility.
Mhm.
So it's falling on that IT shop, and they'll reach out and we have conversations around helping them, kind of help with the things that are higher priority, and work with them to, give them ideas on that. But um, we're hoping to kind of expand that out over time. So
Right, right, right. So let's talk a little bit about like efficient remediation and executive alignment. So how is, prioritizing these vulnerabilities? Because you mentioned earlier, vulnerability scans, you kind of, saw the results of some of the vulnerability scans. You looked at some different other approaches and, engaging. How is this prioritizing these vulnerabilities, engaging leadership through clear reporting, streamlined workflows, strengthening your organization's buy-in for these advanced security initiatives? I mean, how are you making your leadership team aware of all the things and challenges you're facing?
So as with what we do, I actually started doing a cybersecurity briefing every week where I meet with our executive staff and tell them what we've worked on over the past week and give them the most current information. This is what we're working on. These are our top projects. These are vulnerabilities, concerns that we have, things that we're working on. And then if there's active things that we're doing with the co-ops, I'll bring that up and let them know as well. And then they're part of the regular awareness training and all that piece. And then I meet with the network side of the house, our director, VP of IT infrastructure, and we have regular, pretty much daily conversations around what we're seeing when we run our assessments and pen tests and things internally on a monthly basis and on an ongoing basis. As we find things, we'll discuss this is what we're seeing and we prioritize based on criticality. Of course, and then you have things like 0-day vulnerabilities come in as soon as we get, learn about those are prioritized over some other pieces. But the tools help us, you know, understand what's the critical vulnerabilities to kind of cover, and then we kind of go from there. So when we have a capability or something we want to improve, whether it's a tool or something else, I look at how it aligns with a business risk and if we can justify that, because I'm not going to spend or go after a tool just because it's a cool tool or it'll do something else. It needs to meet a specific need for us, and I have to know that we're going to use it and use it regularly and use every aspect of it. So that's a big piece of it, is to have as much functionality as we can in a tool, and then use every bit of that to as best, and then adjust accordingly along the way. So it's having the regular conversation with our executive staff, I think, makes a huge difference. It keeps them engaged, very well aware of what we are actively doing. And then they, support us speaking and sharing information. Of course, have regular interaction with Department of Energy and stuff as well to tell
Right.
them what we're doing and sharing that as well.
Now you had mentioned that your good friend Clayton over there at Legion CyberWorks is where you kind of like learned about, NodeZero, which is our autonomous penetration testing solution. And so when did you folks to first start using NodeZero? It's got a few years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's probably 2 years or so at this point, I believe, at least something like that. But usually when Clay and I talk regularly, when he comes across something that's different, that's new, that he thinks, something to take a look at, he'll share it with me, and I'll take a look at it. And that was something that stood out. I was making some changes at the time and looked at some improvements, and that kind of fell categorically in an area we were looking to kind of improve. And like I said, the proof of concept and everything that we ran and the testing we did on it, especially right after that piece, was very beneficial. So, and it also gives us the ability to help some of the co-ops we can use that tool to run some penetration testing against the co-op. They reach out and let us know if they're interested, and then we can use the tool to help them run a pen test in their environment using the tool as well. So
Nice.
we're able to share that capability within the co-ops, and it's no extra cost to them, and they're getting that extra piece as well. So we've got a number of co-ops that have seen that we've used it with, and that actually we work with on kind of an ongoing basis to kind of provide that as well, to kind of help them with that pen testing piece on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, so you were doing vulnerability scans, you were doing some annual pen testings or periodic pen testings with some third party, and stumbled across NodeZero, just from a good friend of yours. What were some of the initial observations that when you brought it in and
Seeing,
launched it against yourself, you're like,
yeah,
what did you guys think?
seeing what it identified, especially, the big help was having that most recent other third party test to
Right.
compare
Apples to apples, yeah. Yeah.
actually compare it, see the feature functionality, and do that comparison. So that was very beneficial. And then for me, the reporting capability and having the ability to get useful information to be able to provide regular updates to executive leadership and give that insight as well. So the reporting feature is as well, it's been very effective. With it learning kind of your environment. So it's a great part of the toolbox for sure. But seeing the feature functionality, doing that comparison with what we just had done, was just it all kind of just added up, was a no brainer. And the vulnerability scanner we had at the time wasn't giving us it. The reporting was horrific, wasn't providing as much value as we wanted. So it was kind of a big the whole package between the capability, what it provided, the bandwidth it gives us to cover, the reporting features, it all kind of.
So, in the context of, organizations like yourself, I mean, what would be your recommendation, or what would be your guide, or what would be your thoughts around, doing these like continuous risk assessments using a tool like NodeZero? I mean, everybody's probably facing the same challenge. Yeah, we did a pen test last year. I guess we're covered. What would you tell those folks?
Ultimately, every organization has to understand what's going to meet their business need, what their cybersecurity culture, what their program looks like, and finding a tool that's going to give you as much capability as possible. NodeZero is one that's very broad. It gives that capability, and it's proven for us very well. And the ability to run that, you can run it every week if you want to, every month, whatever kind of cadence works. You can run and deploy that however you need to. So if you've got someone that's running your cybersecurity program, understands what your patching cycle is, how the workflow is across the organization to keep things updated, and to bring in something like that to align with the overall cybersecurity program, it makes it effective. So the having the tools align with what you're doing is a big piece, and kind of understanding what you want to do long term helps as well.
Well, I mean, organizations for decades, I've been in this industry for 30 years, and, organizations primarily have just, defensive only, defense, 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 defense. Let's install another defensive technology, another thing, and, to do a periodic assessment once a year or something like that. I mean, do you think that the whole paradigm is shifting away from this defensive only perspective and saying, wait a second, we got to attack ourselves. We got to find our weaknesses so that we can remedy these things. I mean, what are your
Yeah,
thoughts on that?
for a cybersecurity program, it has to be a big picture approach to be effective. The historical line of thought is to have the proactive defense, and that's where all the emphasis is. There has to be just as much emphasis on the response on the back end for when there is an incident. Have the response planned, all of the communication, who's involved, who's going to help, who's going to come in, what your response looks like, and then testing it. We do our incident response testing several times a year, and that's part of our full program as well. So the proactive defense on the front end, doing as much as you can to hopefully push the bad actors on to someone else that's not doing as much proactively, and irritate them so they'll move on. But then at the same time, if you get that persistent bad actor that wants to stay in and they're determined and they eventually get in, you
Yeah.
have the response capability to be as quick and efficient and jump on it as you can to respond to when something happens, whether it's a small or a large event. You're ready to do that. So that's a huge piece and something we talk about regularly. We're very big on doing tabletop exercises, running our own tabletops, having other folks come in and run tabletops for us, taking part in national exercises across that are done nationwide. There's one called GridX that we take a
Yeah.
part of. So it's all a big part of that whole program.
Well, interesting enough. I mean, I told you 30 minutes would just fly by. But anyway, I know we're at the top of the hour, and I was, in respect of everybody's time. And so many thanks to you, Brian, for joining us today. And as
Enjoyed it.
always, many thanks to our listening audience. I think we're getting a little bit of a following, with these Cyberside chats, and hopefully we'll do another one of them next month. And if you have any questions with the listening audience, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can send an email at info@horizon3ai.com, or excuse me, just horizon3.ai. Sorry about that. And if you'd like to sign up for a demo of NodeZero, don't hesitate to ping us on the website. And there's a bunch of links you could find all over the website to sign up for a demo. Any final comments, Brian, thoughts, statements, anything you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh, this is great. Good stuff. I would say the big thing is proactive cybersecurity on both ends is huge. If you're anything in critical infrastructure, definitely, hopefully you've got some good leadership in place and proactive on the IT and OT side for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks again, Brian. Well, take care,
Yep,
everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
appreciate it.